Hello, you're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. Because it's more fun to believe. Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening to another experience of Me and Paranormal You. This is your buddy, Ryan Singer. I'm thrilled because third time's the charm. We've got Abigail Moss here once again on the show. Thanks for coming on today.
Hi, thanks for having me, Ryan. Nice to be
Um,
back.
yeah, it's been we were just chatting about this. It's been a couple of years since we last chatted, and I can't believe it's been that long. Um, it doesn't feel that long. It doesn't. I mean, I guess it's probably less than 2 years anyway. Because I remember distinctly being at my old apartment when we had it, um, and I lived there up until last summer. Anyway, that's not important. What's important is that we're chatting again. I love the scene, the vibe, the everything we got going on back here. It looks like a very comfortable space you're in. For those who might be watching, and for those who are listening, I apologize in advance, but uh, you look cozy.
Thank you. Yeah. Um, my husband, I had a different background in my previous office, which was across the hall. He's like, your background's boring. You need to make it cooler. And so I was like, fine. I got this cool tapestry and some plants. So I'm like, I actually really like this now. So it's
Yeah.
cozy and yeah. Yeah. And what even is time? I mean, it feels like
Right.
2 years, maybe less, like forever and not at all. I don't know. It's nice to be
Yeah.
here now.
Certain things feel crunched, others feel stretched.
Yeah.
Um,
It feels like both at the same time sometimes too. It's very strange.
Yeah, and I've had the joy of meeting some people that recently as well. It feels like so much of a lot of the people I know have been, I don't know, there's like yarn connecting to your pin.
Yeah, we were just talking. I saw you guys were just at an event. My friend Chris was sharing some photos, and it's like, oh, there's so many people I love there. It's really a small world. It's funny, like I feel like I've met so many people, I think probably through you and through your podcast. And then it's like this big family. That's really cool.
Yeah, it really is, and it is really cool. And because it's one of these things too where everybody who's kind of in this family has like maybe a different person who they know everybody through as well, right?
Hmm.
And so it's pretty amazing.
It is.
There's been a lot going on in your life, um, in since we've last spoken, and I've doing my best to keep up and follow along, and not to mention other friends of mine, like we were just talking about, have been participating in like some really cool things you've been doing for people. As far as I guess, like I don't want to call them programs necessarily or building, because I think one of the things, now correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm just kind of going off the top of my head, but a lot of the like the mentorship and the education that you do is community based, and I think there's a focus on that for you, and I think it really shows because these communities, they build out, and so it's like you have been actively building a community, where information is going all kinds of different ways, right? And um, I think that is an aspect of what you're doing that is something that I find unique and also really rad, in the way that you do it, and that it's got that intention set from the beginning, right?
Yeah, thanks. I think so. I mean, I used to work with people one on one, and it was really great and beautiful. But I found that once I started doing group work and people could connect with each other, like in class and outside of class, then people really start helping each other so much and they really start growing from what each other have to share. And it's a lot more fun for everybody. And yeah, it kind of feels like it's like this circular, it's like a circle, it's not as much of like a traditional hierarchy. It's more like I'm here to be a guide, but we're all in this together and we're all kind of walking each other home and learning and growing and awakening together.
Yeah, which I feel like is more apropos for the work. and that it, I think, history shows us the pitfalls of the hierarchy in such
Mm,
ways, right? Where, um, there's countless examples of that. But, and then, because if you, if one is to really just go through and like look at your journey from like zoom out and see all the different, the milestones or the resting stops on your path, it's really remarkable, like all the places you've been and all the things you've done,
mm,
and it's seemingly a very short life so far. Right, or at least in this iteration or this physical
mm,
manifestation. And I'm curious about, because when we look at everything and everywhere you've been, if there ever is a very distinct like location or thing that you see yourself eventually going toward, or your next stop, or do you have these things planned out? Do you go with the flow of things?
mm.
Uh, or is it just like what you're called to as far as like immersing yourself, and whether it's a new modality or something you're incorporating into your practice?
Mm. It's a really interesting question. I feel like, and it's funny to have like someone else say like, "Hey, you've done a lot of things and a lot of," and it's like when it's you, it never feels that way. It's always like, "Oh, I could be living bigger and bolder and doing more," and here I am, this homebody these days. And so that's cool to hear. Thanks for phrasing it that way. My ego loves it. It's like, "Ooh, I sound cool." But but I think that I think everything I've done, it's been like I went to Peru and I did my like I had my awakening there with ayahuasca, and then um I think I go to these places, but it's always been a really inward journey of things that I like kind of woke up inside myself, or like a deeper layer that I connected to with life. So I feel like I travel all the time still, but I've been more of a homebody lately. But there's just so much discovering and healing happening and growth happening inside of me. um, I'm sorry, I forget the last part of the question.
Well, it's pretty much like, do you have a specific idea where you think you might be headed next?
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Yeah. I think next it's creating a movement to help people reconnect to the sacred within them, to help them reconnect with remembering themselves as a soul and remembering, what they came here to do. They feel like there's just this calling that so many people are feeling around the planet, and so many people have a significant role to play. Everybody does, whatever that is, whether it's comedy or being a healer or being a musician or a painter or cake maker, whatever it is. It's like if there's something that you have this calling inside, there's this like time to rise and do that. And so I feel like my work, how I can serve best, is like really creating a movement that people can be a part of, where they can kind of awaken to themselves and support each other in the process through the kind of that community you talked about, and through like letting my guides kind of getting out of the way as much as I can, so my guides can do their work and lead people through this journey.
it's funny that you say getting out of the way as
Mm-hmm.
much as you can, right?
Mm.
It makes me wonder, is there ever a point where we can truly be completely out of the way, or is that connected to it, or is that inherent, like it's always going to be a part of us there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what it's about. It's sort of it's being. It's like having your individual consciousness and having some ego. It's necessary on Earth to navigate this plane, and to some degree. I kind of, it's like, I guess I should say it's more of a collaborative process, but collaborative in that I work with my guides and they kind of share what's coming next and what's how to guide people. And I'm the one kind of physically speaking it into existence. I'm the one who's on the earth plane being like, all right, is this going to work for the program? Okay, wait, but no, we need to do this because that's how things work in human brains. And so it's just like, it's collaborative, but I feel like the highest guidance kind of comes through me. And then I'm like, a translator for that.
Okay. Yeah, because at the end of the day, to be completely out of the way would make it not of the material world, I guess, anymore. You
Totally.
might as well just be another guide like in
Yeah.
the ether, right? Trying to
Right.
knock on someone's door, like, hello, answer.
Hello. Exactly. It's like, well, why be born and have a body? Like, it's so much work to be born and grow this body and like deal with being alive on Earth. So might as well like make that as enjoyable a process as you can while you're here.
I think I forget that sometimes that
Oh, me
that's
too.
the that's a big part of it, and it's supposed to be. Um, the because you were talking about how we always think, oh, we could be living bigger, bolder. I'm always thinking like, oh, I could be doing more work. I could be, less body focused or whatever. Or that's I guess, a weird phrase, but like less in my human body and more in the more, in the I mean, I just have these dreams of like being connected to so much knowledge, right? Or,
Mm,
reading more books and, being like deep librarian of the Akashic Record Library and like just knowing where everything is. And it's just like, okay, well, there's a bunch of cardinals flying around this window right now,
oh,
um,
cool.
which is pretty cool. Yeah. And it's just like, okay, maybe just relax a little bit, huh? And like remember that there's a reason I'm a physical body right now, right?
I think that's exciting too, though, like that thirst for knowledge and understanding and connectedness to all of that. And I think what kind of, for me anyway, what makes it really exciting is like anchoring that into my mind and feeling the aliveness of that in my body. And how can I bring that into the world in my own way? It's like, it's the bridging that I think is so awesome. And I feel like there can be tendency, and I've been had this tendency to kind of swing one way or the other to be like really body focused or body identified versus like I just want to like be up in the stars where everything is divine and feel so good and but it's like when I can bridge those two, there's this sort of like magic activating where things turn on in a whole different way that feels very, very alive. And I think that's for me anyway, just like moving more and more towards aliveness, like what obviously with integrity and all of that, but what feels more alive, what turns me on in all of these different ways.
Well, that's interesting. And it does sound exciting. I'm
Yeah.
curious when maybe you find yourself more anchored in the body side, what you do or what's a practice that you'll do to get more up into the stars or to kind of move the pendulum back into the other
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah. For me, I'll go to yoga. I'll do some yin yoga. I had to do a lot of physical healing over the last year, like healing from Lyme disease and all that. So I just like, I would, I think I would have points of being body focused where I would just be like, my body hurts and this sucks and I'm broken and blah, 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 blah. And then I'd go and do some yin yoga, which is like the sleepy kind where you just lie down the whole time. And I would just
Oh,
drop
wait,
in.
I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah,
about
there's a
this
sleepy kind
kind.
of yoga where it's not
A
hard. You just
sleepy
get to lie
kind of.
there. It's yeah, so it's not actual sleep yoga, which is yoga nidra, but yin is like so yin is like the feminine side. It's like the other half of yang. And so it's you just lie down and do these long, slow stretches and you open up your body and you kind of release tension. And then with that, you release emotion. And so I would go into all of these spiritual journeys with my guides, releasing all this past life trauma and releasing all this emotion. And then I come home and be like, oh, okay, that's what that pain was all about. So that
Oh,
helps me
wow.
drop back into the like, oh, there's this spiritual energetic component. Right. I knew that. And then helps me get back there.
That's so funny to me too that it's like such a body focused thing that gets us back into the spiritual, right? To get out of our body, we use the body. It's almost like the key to the door is the lock. It doesn't make any sense what I just said, but I I, th-
No, it
I
totally
love
does.
I love this. I cannot believe I've never heard of what sounds like the most perfect for me yoga ever.
You gotta check it out. It is so good. I did like they often have like music and candles lit, and you just
That's my
go
jam.
and oh, you're gonna love it, Ryan. It is
That's my
so
jam.
amazing. Yeah, that's
I
all I did
that's
for
how
months.
Oh my
Oh,
God, that's how I meditate. I have to have candles and I have to have music.
mhm.
Um, for me, that's the best way I find that I can get into places or go places. Um,
Beautiful.
uh, okay, so do you mind if we do talk about the physical recovery aspect that you've been going through? Because I
Yeah,
think
man.
that's um, I think it's good information to get out there.
Absolutely.
And because of the just because of the nature of, and we can talk more on this, but it's because so much of this, when specifically when we're talking about Lyme disease, is the prohibitive nature of treatment, and because of the prohibitive cost, I should say,
Hmm.
of treatment, which is daunting, scary, and quite frankly, it's flabbergasting.
It is.
um so we can talk a little bit. Let's do a real quick commercial break right here. Speaking of prohibitive costs, patreon.com/Ryan Singer. You can go, you can get all of these chats without commercials for $3 a month. So that's about $1.50 less than I unfortunately will still go and pay $4.50 for a fancy coffee at one of the coffee places. So less than that. So patreon.com/Ryan Singer. And we'll be back with more from Abigail Moss. And we're back. And we've been here the whole time if you're a patron. But I mean, I really want to revisit. I want to put a pin in it if I can. Actually, I'll write it down. I want to talk about like the fusion, the energetic fusion of, body and mind, and like feeling truly, truly alive in that, because I mean, that does. I think most of us are probably seeking some kind of semblance of that in our daily lives, because to me, that just equals like I'm being happy to be alive.
Mm.
And I've combined these things, and I've got a little bit of this, I've got a little bit of that, and it's a great balance, right? So maybe we'll circle back to that towards the end. But
Mm.
I want to talk about your journey and your discoveries in treating, and like even being diagnosed, first of all, right, properly with Lyme.
Yeah. So it took 7 years to get a proper diagnosis and figure out what the F was going on with my body because I tried traditional doctors, and doctors in Canada are not trained in Lyme. It's just my doctor said it's not a thing here. It's like, well, it's a thing in my body. So it took a, it took a long time to find out why I had chronic fatigue and all of these digestive issues and all of these symptoms. And then I finally saw an alternative practitioner in the city and got a test that was sent out to Germany to Armin Labs, which is one of the more reliable tests. There's a lot of tests in North America that are not, they're only like 50% reliable accuracy, which is not great. So I finally got that done in January of this year. And it was a bummer, but it was also a relief. I mean, it was also insight, and like now I know what's wrong with me and I can start dealing with it. Um, so I picked up some herbs online, Samsara herbs, tick immune support. But before I did that, I did go through that. Okay, let me look up people who can help me and where can I do this and what are the best places. And the first link that showed up on Google was a place in Arizona, and I can get my Lyme treatment there for between 40 and 80,000 US, which for a Canadian is about
Wow,
60 or 100,000. I was like,
that's like
holy,
that's crazy.
it's crazy. It's a huge industry. And I'm sure they're helping people. We read reviews. It works for some, it doesn't work for us, some people. So some people have gone and spent all that money and didn't get better. So it's really just heartening to already feel so crappy, and then to get clarity, and then to read all of these things and have all these people say to you, oh, you can have this for the rest of your life. It's going to take at least 2 years before you start feeling even a little bit better. And it's really overwhelming. And so I ended up doing more research, or actually asked my husband to do more research because that's what he loves to do. So he went on all these different Reddit forums and was looking at what works for everybody. And yeah, there's these herbs that I got, and then I was already doing hot yoga, and I picked up a sauna wrap. So it's like $200 off Amazon, and it's like a sleeping bag I crawl into, and it's an infrared sauna. And so it's beautiful because the bacteria can't live above 41 degrees Celsius. And so the sauna heats your body up and you sweat, and it kind of kills them back. And then the hot yoga, the heat's really helpful. And then the yoga was just yin yoga, like I mentioned, is where for months, that's all I had the energy to do because I had chronic fatigue. And so I would just do that and I would go to class and I would cry the whole time and I would connect with my spirit guides and do healing in past lives and future lives and just all of this deep, deep stuff that needed to be done. And that really I started getting my life back because for a long time, for years, I could like see like a small amount of clients. I could do my courses, my classes, but then I would just be like, I'd have no energy for the rest of the day. I'd just be lying on the couch most of the day, feeling sorry for myself before I started like going to yoga. And it was hard. It was really hard to like face all that stuff and then started moving my body more and doing the harder yoga classes. And that it's really kind of yoga is where you kind of become a warrior, where like you do these moves and these warrior poses, and it really helps you tap into the like, I'm a strong AF. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get this done. It's not gonna beat me. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna like step more into life. And that's kind of like you mentioned that earlier. It's like about being more alive. And that's kind of what this whole journey has been for me, is looking all the places I kind of pulled back from life in this life or another, and just where it was too much or it was too hard or it hurt too much, and just like choosing to step deeper into my body and step deeper into life regardless of what I found there.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean it's a it's a beautiful thing to hear, like the discovery of a truth, right?
Mm.
And I think you touched on something that so many people can probably relate to in one way or another in their life, and that is the relief of clarity, and then the shock and the almost like, I don't know, it's not disappointment, but being distraught about the solution and
Mm.
what it requires, and or with the scope of it, how large it is to, because I don't know what people would rather have, like a mystery thing that confounds them, or clarity on something and not having the means to deal with it. I don't know which
Mm.
is more disheartening. um that's a I don't want to be on either side of this coin kind of situation, right?
Totally.
And yeah, so it's, I mean, your husband's the guy like who loves going to the deep going onto the deep searches, right? And I can respect that. I like going on deep rabbit holes for certain things, but and especially I think too for when we're talking about like people in our lives that are important to us. um I would I'd probably have more energy to do like deep dives into things for someone someone else than myself, because I'm one of these people like, oh, I don't want to, if I go too deep and like I'll realize I just don't have the time or the energy or the money to do what it's going to take,
Mm-hmm.
or do I really want like to get to the bottom of this, right? To figure it out. Not that I love to be a victim or, oh, nothing I can do, you just have to feel sorry for me, but I mean, I'm sure I've had that, times in my life where I've been like that. But do you find that along the way, because this is relatively recent, right? Um, do you think there is, I don't know what the right way to say it is it, it's not an immediate thing, right? The treatment and in working through this, it's not, hey, take some amoxicillin and 3 days later your throat's not going to be sore anymore.
Totally. No, there's no, and it's actually, I wanted that. I really wanted just like someone just take all this pain from me and give me a good working body again, like I used to have back in the day. And but then but then it's that coming back to that truth is like, no, this is my journey. And I kind of know in my soul that like I chose this to help me wake up. I chose this to like learn the practice of self-love through my actions, through coming back to myself, through this work that is necessary to heal. And I started so I was doing the hot yoga and the sauna, and that's been helping. That was helping before I even knew it was Lyme. And then once I realized what the main culprit was, I got those herbs, and I've been on them since January, and my energy has just been um, steadily coming back ever since then. So like I used to just be unable to do a 15-minute walk down the street. And now I can go through kind of hikes in the woods with our dogs and climb the big hill and just be a functioning human again, which is so freaking great. Like there's still healing I have to do, but um I just try not to take any of the progress for granted. Because like from where I've come from, it's just so nice to be able to like have a life and be able to work all day and be passionate about it and excited and then still be okay at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, and you've never, I mean, granted, we're not, BFF, super tight, talk all the time, kind of, pals, but there's never been any indication from you in the, what is it now, 3, 4+ years or whatever, since we first communicated, that there was anything even really going on. As far as like, you're not the type of person who complains. You're not the type of person who's like throwing pity parties for yourself, at least from what I can tell. And I think those, in people who are like that, people who aren't outwardly making sure everyone is aware of, the struggles they're going through, are oftentimes expected to be the bedrocks or the sturdy support systems uh, for other people. And it's not that other people are being nefarious and projecting that onto those types of people like you necessarily, but it's just kind of like, oh well, Abby's never, she's never complaining, she's never like too tired, she's never upset, so I can always count on her. um and so I think that's an aspect that I'm curious. It's like you have to like really, I don't, buttress yourself like all the time, constantly, especially when you're depleted and you don't know why. And are you finding that now that you're in recovery mode and having more energy, that you're able to, I don't know, be more sturdy for yourself? And I mean, I don't know, I might be projecting that onto you just from like my assumptions about you and things like that, that people are always kind of like, oh, I can always count on her for this, or et cetera. But it seems like you probably have some of that, if I were to guess.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I want to be someone that people can count on, and the kind of work that I do, I'm helping people heal. I don't want them to be thinking about how I'm feeling in a session. And there was like, it's been a journey kind of navigating that. So at first I had these thoughts of, well, I don't want to be um, the healer who wasn't fully healed. And there's like shame around, I should be good and healthy because I'm a healer. I should have figured all of this out by now. And so working through that and like having compassion, like, no, this is my journey, but it's okay. And then I think I'm going through this process of kind of opening up more and sharing more about it. And I think that's just kind of part of my method is I like to feel like I'm a little further on the other side when I talk about it. Like I tend to move to avoid talking about things when I'm in the thick of them because I don't want to step into that victim place. And I know I don't have to do that in order to talk about it, but I have more clarity of thought of the lessons and the understanding and how I could then kind of be a lighthouse for someone else going through it similarly. So I want to avoid kind of doing any trauma bonding, like, hey, we're all suffering. And I'd rather be in the place of like, man, that really sucked. If you're in the suck, this is what helped me.
Oh, that's so funny. Like you just, when you said the trauma bonding line, for some reason, for the first time in my life, I finally understood certain types of comedy. Um, Now I'm just like flashing through my mind are all these different like styles of jokes and comedians who, it's all about like, it all sucks, right? We're all kind of, but that's really funny. The So it sounds like you're like always you want to always be a couple steps ahead, a little
When
on
I'm
the other
sharing
side.
it, yeah,
Yeah.
I like to be sharing it when I'm, I guess like for me to distill it down, I like sharing from an empowered place. And if I'm not in that place yet, I'm just going to wait until I get there. And then I'm going to share from that place.
Yeah. See, I'm the guy who I'm telling you how great a book is, and I'm not even done with the book. It's
Which I
like, well,
love.
maybe finish the book and then tell us how great it was. But
Well, there's something to be said for when you're inspired and excited in the moment for letting
yeah,
that come through.
yeah. Like there's lots of aspects of me that are like a puppy, I suppose. I'm just like a, I need to put
Except
some
that you
pads down.
so much puppies have like so much excitement for life. That's such a great, great energy to have.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do. I mean, at some point, I think it's good to also be like, oh, a potty trained dog, uh, as opposed to just full puppy all the time. But it is. I'm curious as far as like the integration of your own healing and through this process. Um, have you found through like everything that goes with it, and you're talking about like this is my healing journey and kind of, understanding that, have you found that it has fundamentally changed the way you go about the way you have, taught or mentored or shared? Was there, other than like the great insight and understanding what it was and that was affecting you for all these years, I'm curious if there was any other like real big aha moment that has come out of it. And we've been kind of talking about it, but if it could be distilled and there was like some aspect that kind of, kind of took you by surprise, but in a good way.
Mm. I think the healing journey for me has been a continuous reminder that there's always a deeper reason behind it. So, in the times when my body is aching or my body was really aching and hurting and I really did not feel good, I would become really identified with I'm just broken, just like fall into those hopeless places and really identified with there's something wrong with my physical body. But then when I go, for example, the yin yoga and find all of this other stuff to release, I would be continuously reminded and surprised each time that no, there's meaning behind this. And there's always a reason behind it. There's always a lesson behind it. There's always a deeper awakening available within it. And there's been different moments throughout where I was reminded, my soul chose this. What would I have done in order to wake up? Oh, I would have gotten sick. So I had no dang choice because my stubborn mind can't escape my body at that point.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there is something like profoundly like calming and yet also simultaneously emotional for me. Like when I talk to you, there's, like I feel like you have really great insights, that you're kind of deeply connected, to, something more important than the surface of things. It's a real treat. Um,
Thanks.
I mean, you have a lot of grace when it comes to, the way you describe and the way you handle the things that you personally have had to be, that you've been going through. Um, and I think a lot of us can, take something from that, in our own lives.
Well, thank you. I think you hold a really beautiful space to bring out the best in people. It's not always been a graceful process for me. It's definitely had like lots of messy moments, lots of pity parties, but I feel like it's just this remembering process. I feel like everything I'm doing in this lifetime is this process of remembering. And the healing is just a part of that. The healing is, remembering where I turned away from life and was not in alignment with who I really am and how to turn back towards it. And I feel like that's just the beauty of beauty, unfortunately, of like having gone through that struggle. It teaches you a lot.
Yeah, and I think one of the really cool things about this too is, or just in general about, what you do, and having talked to and met now, more than a handful of people who have studied with you and, you know, or associated with you in that way in this world is it's like a demystification of the woo woo for me, which I think is very important. Like you're very grounding, you know, like if someone were to talk to you who was skeptical of all things like holistic and spiritual, um, they have a certain idea of who these people are, who people like us or people like you, uh, who you are. And you can see the parodies of these people, people doing, TikTok characters and all kinds of stuff, right? But, and then to actually have a conversation, that's what I mean by the demystifying um, of these mystical ideas and concepts of whether it's like spirit guides or, channeling, um, past life, even future life work. Do you find that that's been something that you intentionally set out to do, or does it just kind of fit your personality? Are you like this in a lot of things?
I'm now, I definitely didn't used to be. I was definitely in the spiritual closet big time, like afraid of being canceled and too woo. And my husband, bless him, we both come a long way. He's like, yeah, no, I think you should try to use language that's more approachable. Because there's this like, oh my God, what is everybody gonna think? It's gonna be too much. And but I remember being there, I was just like hiding and feeling like so freaking lonely and like I couldn't connect because I wasn't really being who I am. And it really wasn't very fun. And that was part of the journey of like releasing those layers and stepping back into myself. And there was lots of layers to release. There was lots of stuff this lifetime and the other lifetimes that caused me to hide out of a feeling of needing to be safe. But now that I've moved through that, it is so freaking liberating to just be who I am. And it is so much fun. And like, I didn't even know about the TikTok things. That's hilarious. But I feel like I'm just in my little world where I'm going to be me. And that's cool if you don't like it. That's not for you. You're not ready for that. Maybe it'll never be for you, but there's lots of people who it is for. And those are my people and those people I love connecting with. And I love getting to see, that part of them come out. And I feel like I've worked through these layers. So to me, it's just like this is just existence. Like it's so normalized in my mind that we're all spiritual beings, that we all have the capacity to do these things. It's a part of who we are. It's a part of our birthright to claim this aspect of ourselves and let go of, that Christian colonial oppression throughout our history. And it's just so juicy and it's so fun and it's so liberating to just be as woo as I want to be and not be afraid of what happens because I think it's awesome and there's the woo people out there. So, it helps you find your right people.
It really does. And to be clear, there's a couple of people, friends of mine I know who kind of do some spoof satire stuff on like character work. And one of them is Dana Moon. She's a comedian, and she does this character called Mango. I think it's like Mango, the psychic energy healer or something, and it's really funny. Um, but I'm not, there's people who are doing it right because there are aspects of this world that, if we can't have a sense of humor about it, it's like, come
Oh
on, get
yeah.
out of here. But
Yeah.
it's just ripe for the picking, some of it. Um,
True. Can't take it too seriously.
exactly. But at the same time, simultaneously, like there's nothing more important in this world. Right?
Right.
It's
It's
like,
like it's really serious, but don't take it too
yeah, yeah,
seriously.
yeah, exactly. It's like we're talking about everything that truly, really matters in this world. But at the same time, hey, take it or leave it, have some fun with it.
Well,
Um,
and I think that's like the balancing part. Like when I'm doing like shamanic work, if I'm like working with like clearing some darker energies, like those dark energies usually take themselves really seriously. So I just immediately start laughing and it's like, hey, it's all good. Like let's lighten this whole thing. And it just like that just really loosens the stiffness and the tenseness. And it's just like there's something to be said about just bringing that energy to the things that could otherwise feel rigid or hard or dense.
yeah, that's it is it is funny though to think like all these moments that we have in our life where I know for me specifically it's been, I guess, in comedy, but where I've had those moments throughout my career where I'm just like, oh, I can't really be everything I want to be on stage for this particular crowd, maybe. And I realized that once I even go further than I thought I would ever go, and being like completely weird or silly, that it more me, the closer I get to me, the more it does connect in certain scenarios. In most of the time, if not all the time. But and I also have to, I think it's important for us to keep in mind that, I don't need this doesn't need to be for everybody. But more specifically, it doesn't need to be for everybody at that specific time, right?
Mm,
Someone might not be there yet, ready for that. Maybe it's skipping too many steps to get to this particular thing. They need to have a couple other things first. Um, and that's something that I do a really bad job of keeping in my mind sometimes, but it is good to remember. Like, so when someone's like, some people on their spiritual journey are ready to just jump right into the Arctic waters, right, and be
mm,
jolted
mhm.
awake, and other people need to kind of tiptoe in.
Do you find, Ryan, that you shift that place of in your when you're doing comedy, or is it like I'm here for the people who are at this stage, or are you kind of feeling it in the crowd and adjusting based on what you feel?
I feel like uh, that's an interesting question. Um, I feel like usually I'm pretty firm and hey, this is, because I'll even tell audiences sometimes. I'll say, let this be a lesson to you to Google the comedian before you just show up to the comedy club. Because one Google of my name on that first page of results, you would have a pretty clear understanding
Mhm,
of what you might may or may not be getting into, and that usually gets a really good laugh, and which shows me that people understand that. Okay, yeah, this is a little different than maybe we thought it was going to be, and we can all acknowledge like the elephant in the room sometimes, right?
mhm,
And uh, and that usually will like open up the sieve for people usually. And then other times I will, because it is important for me, and I think whether we're talking about me doing comedy or you doing the work that you do, at the end of the day, the most important thing is the people that we're there for.
mhm.
It's not about us, right? I mean, as I don't know if there's a more egocentric business in the world than stand-up comedy.
Oh, I feel like there are like
But I mean,
that would
it's
challenge
like
it.
I'm on stage alone by myself, all the attention's on me, that kind of thing, right?
Mm,
Um, but at the end of the day, it's not about me. And in the same way, it's who are the people that we are there for,
mhm,
and we can lose focus of that. I can lose focus, and if I do lose focus of that, this is a really long answer to your question. But when I lose focus of that aspect, that's when I'm very rigid and like, if you don't like it, then that's just too bad. You don't get art or whatever,
mm,
right? And I
mm,
become rigid in everything in those moments. But I'm I luckily I think I have less and less of those the older I get. Um, but
mhm.
there is something to be said about the energy that one must bring as a participant, right? Like someone can't just show up to you and be like, okay, give me the keys, give me the keys to the kingdom, right? There has to be participation.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I always say, I'm the guide, but like they're ultimately the ones doing their inner work. Like it's their choice to open to something or move into it or feel through it. That's they are at all the healing, the awakening, the shifting, it all happens inside of them. And I agree with you. I think I'm the same way. I used to be have moments of being more rigid or like, I'm this and this is what I do. And if you don't like it, then see you later. Or now it's like, okay, like this is my specialty, but I'm gonna also feel into where you are at and I'm gonna do my best to invite you in. But I also want to like you said, like Google me, like educate people as much as I can ahead of time. So it's like, don't come to me if you want to go really slow. Like, come to me if you're ready to dive into the deep end. And I
Yeah,
think, and I think it's more fun that way for everybody.
I agree 100%. I 100% am totally on board that it's more fun for everybody, even if they don't realize it in advance. Um, yeah, I think that's safe to say that you and I are both we're deep end in what we do,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for sure. The I want to circle back to this because I think this is a big part of this kind of leads perfectly into what we were talking about at the beginning when you were talking about like the bridge between the two and really like just being turned on about all these things and like feeling like being in love with these moments and having the energy, which is a big part of it. And our physical vessels, being healed and being in better places obviously is a big contributing factor to this. But those moments of being able to bridge the two of the mind and the body, or the spiritual and the physical realms, and how that's really the sweet spot for, I mean, I don't know. I mean, how would you describe it? Like the joy of being alive?
Yeah, I think that's like the joy of being alive. I think it's also the awakening journey. Like it's when we come into the body, we go into the earth plane, we go into the denser frequencies, we go through the layer of forgetting who we are as a spiritual being, and we come into this, we're born into this world and we're very externally focused for others need to, feed me and nourish me and take care of all my needs. And then we get older, we get more mature, and then we go through this is like a little, I don't know why I'm going through this little journey now. we, we go we go through puberty and all the emotions and the intensity, and then we move into this potential of this awakening to remembering ourselves as a soul in a physical body. And that's the awakening on earth. I think that's bringing heaven to earth. It's like bringing the divine aspect of yourself and your awareness of all that is into the earth plane. And that's really just this bridging and this awakening of life in physical form. Yeah, the bridging of those two worlds, I think, is really where the magic is.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I've never really thought of it that way. And it's just a reminder, like, isn't it amazing? Thank God I'm getting older. Thank God I'm given the opportunity to have time to move and discover the spiritual from the physical, emerging from the physical into the spiritual. And gosh, I just have this like very stark visual image of me as some kind of beach slash water creature that kind of
Mm.
has a muddy head kind of like poking out through the sand right now. And I don't even know if there's arms or flappers or I don't know what it is, but like that's where I feel like that's where like my mile marker is right now. I'm just kind of like, kind of like, bubbles of mud from
I
my
love that.
breathing hole.
I love that your creature is like just cool about it all. Like, all
Just
right,
cool
I'm
about it. I'm
evolving
like,
and blanketing.
yeah, you like when like the waves roll back from the beach and then there's those little whatever those little critters are that live under the sand and you
Mm-hmm.
can see like the air bubbles. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
feel like. That's the physical plane, right? And like the air is the spiritual plane, and that's me kind of just like kind of wiggling out, being like, "What's this all about?" That's where I feel like I'm at
I
in
like your
regards
vibe.
to of the awakening. But and it's like, oh my God, there's this whole other thing out here,
Yeah,
uh, and it's much more expansive than where I just came from.
right. It's endlessly expansive. And I love you there. I love your lightness and coming into it. I think it's just that's just the journey that we're moving through. People talk about like the new earth and this transforming of consciousness and it's the age of Aquarian. And I'm not an astrologer. I can't go into depth about that, but it's this like I feel like this frequency on earth is it's shifting into this new place and we're part of that shift, hopefully. And we are moving it just into this awakening process and this, I think it's like I'm not going to try to get too much into a tangent, but futurists and spiritual people kind of talk about the same thing from like the angle of technology or the angle of energy and consciousness, but just this point of the universe becoming conscious of itself. It's just moving into this like deep awakening and connectedness, but within physical form.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's and like this consciousness is pervasive sounds like the wrong word, but it is I don't know, maybe present everywhere in all physical things. Um which really skews a lot of the ideas in a more positive or more in a more light way than like the darkness that can kind of wrap some of these ideas.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think everything is made of consciousness and energy. I think everything is alive. And I mean, the beauty that we have in our individual consciousness is like when we connect with something and pay energy to it, it's this like engagement with another thing in our reality that we're feeding energy to, and that it's bringing us into a deeper awareness. It's like this continuous unfolding through our awareness and through our focus.
Yeah, and I do love the idea that everything is consciousness. And the you know the older I get, the more I find I'm leaning into like the idealistic or the idealism, the idea that everything is the you know, the consciousness is the foundation and everything else is perception and you know emanates from that as opposed to consciousness emanating from the physical or the material. Well, now trying to keep like I don't know, trying to keep our truly conscious, but you know, perceivably, is that a word?
I
Perceivably,
I'm
perceivably,
gonna let's say yes. I think so.
like perceivably material feet on the ground, right? Like when we like lean into the idea that you know manifestation, consciousness, spirituality, the connectivity of all things, these are big concepts, especially for us when we you know first start awakening to them, and to keep our feet on the ground is oftentimes you know a little more difficult for some than it is for others. I suppose I know I can leap off the ground and you know sometimes it'll take me days before I land and I just get caught up in the updraft of it all. And but I'm curious if we have to allow ourselves getting carried away sometimes to understand what the limits of our own understanding or our own you know integration for some of this stuff could be, uh, or if it's always a good idea to have some kind of grounding element or limit set in place in advance.
Interesting question. I think that it depends. I think we go through cycles in our awakening journey. Something called Kundalini syndrome. It's like this awakening of the Kundalini where you can feel like this intense spiritual journeys and experiences and inspiration flowing through you, but it can be such an intensity that it can actually be like become dangerous and overwhelming. It's just like too much energy circulating through the body than what the system is ready to handle. And so there's things like qigong or kundalini yoga that helps the energy to circulate through the nervous system, through the energy pathways in a more stable way, in a way that the system is able to process. And that can feel a lot better, it can feel very grounding and nourishing. It can feel a lot calmer on the individual. So I went through that where I was just going through this Kundalini awakening and everything was like, every time I closed my eyes, and there's this meditative spiritual journey, but everything was also very intense and all this emotion was burning up. And so I did lots of qigong. My teacher said, "Don't do any plant medicines." I'm like, "No way." So ground, ground, ground. So it's like, yeah, I didn't feel very grounded at that time, but I was very much in that space, and there's beauty to that. But also, it's let's do this in a way as much as we can that we can anchor in to the body and help the system to process what's moving through it right now.
I haven't explored qigong, and I was really having an enjoyable time exploring Kundalini yoga for a minute. And then I was also doing this other therapy system with a friend of mine they were two different chakra systems that they were operating from. So it was kind of a situation where it's like, okay, maybe don't be. And then I had this, I had this other therapist, and I'd be talking to, and he's got some woo woo aspects to him. He's like, yeah, I probably wouldn't be doing both. If you're trying to focus like your energy into a 5 chakra system and then going to a 7 chakra, he's like, since they're fundamentally different, like you probably shouldn't be doing those simultaneously with one another. Which it made sense to me at the time, so
Mhm.
I stopped the yoga. But so when it comes to doing like something like qigong, um, is this like a daily practice, or I guess it depends on what the person needs and how much grounding is needed at the time, or how much exploration maybe we plan on doing? Like if we plan on really launching off into some things, or if we're feeling an intense awakening at times, it's just kind of like take as needed on the prescription paper.
Yeah, it is very much like where are you at? What is needed for you? So, like, as an example, if someone's really depleted, they could be feeling very sensitive. They could be feeling really overwhelmed with all of the energy around them and like not know how to deal with it, or just like really like lifting off into all of these other realms, but not feeling connected to their body. So, Qigong can be really helpful because it can help them bring their energy up, raise their energy so that their energetic field is full of them. They're not being bombarded by other things that's not going to be affecting them as much. It's just a very regulating process. So if you're coming from a place, wherever you're coming from, it's going to help bring you back into a balanced place. And so, I mean, it's always helpful, but some people are going to need it more than others, and some people are going to need to do it more than others for a while. So yeah, it really just kind of depends. For me, I'm full transparency. I don't do it every day. Um, I kind of I come back to it a lot, and I always remember it a lot. And definitely a part of my life, but my mind does have the habit of like when I'm feeling good, I'm just gonna like ride the wave and have fun and come back to it when I need to.
Well, yeah, I think that's important too, right? Riding the wave and feeling good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, doesn't that remind me of a song, for some reason, a classic rock song? Anyway, yeah, I think there are times where we have to, okay, reap the benefits of the work. And we
Totally.
forget, maybe we forget that sometimes. I mean, I know I have the conversations with comedians, especially younger comedians, um, because there's this ever present feeling of, if I'm not working constant, if I'm not on the grind, right? And it's something that's been a big focus of mine. Just in like trying to understand how we're being bombarded with it constantly, of if you're not grinding all day long every day, this is how you be successful, this is how you make it in
Yeah.
showbiz and in life
Yeah.
in general. And if you're not, crushing it every day all day long, you're just going to get left behind, and you're going to be a failure. And that's because you didn't have the drive, you didn't have
Mm,
the passion, right? When in fact that's all bogus.
mm-hmm.
And we do have to just enjoy ourselves when we've done the work to get us to a place where we can enjoy it.
Yeah. And that enjoyment creates more momentum. It makes it all worthwhile, and it creates more momentum and celebration into where you're meant to go next. Because if it's just all work, then like my inner child really starts to protest at that point, where it's like, no, we're not, we're going to go outside and play, otherwise I'm not going to let you do anything else, or I'm going to have a major meltdown. like honor that part of myself. Is like sometimes I just need to go play in the woods, or I need to go see some friends and laugh and be silly, and that's nourishing too. And that's necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I know we live in a world where it's still not popular to, be like a, regularly hopeful person, or to, be positive. And so many people resonate with the opposite of those. And they think you're a fool. They think you're stupid. They think you aren't paying attention to what's happening around you if you are making a conscious choice to try to be hopeful or positive.
Mm,
And the system is really set up against it. And, and people who promote those ideas that I'm talking about, the anti-hope ideas, right? They are propped up by the same system that promotes those things. So
mhm,
I think it's, a struggle for some people to remember that, and to and I think shame's a big part of it too, right? Like, I mean, none of us can be informed on everything all the time, every day, about every last new, old, or current thing. And we're not built physically, or at least mentally at this point, I don't think, to be able to process the world's events every single day, all day long. We're still kind of like, hey, I can handle what's happening in my village, maybe,
mhm, mhm,
but I can't handle what's happening on a global scale. I'm just an individual, and it's totally overwhelming. And I think that's probably, in my opinion, it's a big part of, the overall nature of things, or the state of things nowadays, is we can't process global grief and catastrophe and news as individuals, and yet we're expected to keep up with technology that has exploded in the last 15 years, and we're just not capable of doing that at this time. um,
mm,
and it overwhelms us, and we don't even realize it, and it affects everything else we do. But um, what's a good way for people to remember that it's okay to be hopeful, and to understand that progress is possible, and that even if the end comes, the end isn't necessarily dark, if that
mm,
makes sense.
mhm. Yeah, I think that's beautifully said. And I love what you said. We can't process global grief. And just thinking about the connectedness and scale at which we're all, able to access information now. I think there's a quote that I really love from the astronaut Chris Hadfield. He talks about, evolution and life and the odds of everything unfolding and evolving the way that it did to be here today and for life to be supported the way it is now. And he says, life happens because it just barely can. And that's always been our evolutionary journey. And they talk about, um, you know, the creatures when they first came on land, your guy was really happy, but a lot of a lot of people who like a lot of scientists talk about like they probably did that because they had to leave the water. Like it would have been uncomfortable. It would have been unsafe and scary. Like it would have been a very difficult experience for this creature to evolve into a way that it could adapt in this entirely different world. And that's just kind of like the pain is the pressure that pushes us into that, the birthing of that next evolution. And the hope or the faith, like that is what points us to where we're going next. And so when it is that it's like gravity is like the despair. It's easy to get pulled down into it, and the hope is really the lifting up. That's the resistance that we create as we push against that and point ourselves to where we intentionally want to be going. And like that's really, I feel, the journey that we're on. That's like this forging process where we're at right now, and this birthing of a new consciousness in the world. And it's like when you're talking about all of this news globally, I kind of imagine it like this fire hydrant of stuff coming at us. It's like, okay, that's too much. Let's churn that down. And like, can you like create a little trickle in the faucet, but only turn it on when you can feel full of love and when you can hold both at the same time. Like, so can I be aware of devastation happening, but also hold love for myself and everything involved and everyone involved? And it's like, and if it overwhelms me, I'm going to turn the tap off and I'm going to move towards the love and the places I feel nourished by that.
Yeah, I love that. And if that was just a simple daily practice that everyone participated in, I feel like you'd see a lot of this global grief, disappear right before our eyes.
Mm.
Um, because so much of it is just self-created and even self-fulfilling prophecies at
Mhm.
on some level, where everyone expects bad things to happen, and what a surprise, they're finding all the bad things happening. Not to say that bad things don't happen, because they do, but well, this has been great.
It
uh
has been great.
what a treat, as always, to chat with you, and you know just throwing some basic, just general, questions about like the future state of humanity and things like that.
I
Out
love this is
towards
my
you.
jam. That's what happens when
uh
two deep end people talk.
yeah, yeah. So I just want to remind people, mindbodyfree.com is the website. You can
Thank you.
find all information that you may need there. You can read more in depth about the story, about your personal awakening. Also, you can go more in depth on the the treatment of Lyme disease, and it's really fascinating stuff. And I'm really grateful for you, and glad to have you in my big circle, or my circle of life here. And these conversations are always a real treat for me. I always learn so much that I almost feel like I should be paying you. And so yeah, let's let everybody know where else they can find you. And did you have something, it might have been like kind of a flash thing, or like a very short term thing, but there was something on your Instagram you were, I remember you talking about, like, was it a mentorship program that was
Yeah.
kind of a first come first serve?
I have I'm doing a channeling course. It's 6 weeks starting later in August. So I'm gonna throw the link up on my website. People can check out. There's like a master class that where I talk about like how to discern your messages from your guides versus other places, and we go into a journey of meeting your guides. So people can check that out on my website and join the free class. And if they like that, they can come to my program. But they can also find me on Instagram at Your Mind Body Free. And I've got a link tree in there if they want to join my Facebook group or check out the channeling masterclass. Yeah. And I'm grateful for you too, Ryan. Thank you.
Oh, well, it's the pleasure is all mine, trust me. And everyone that I know that knows you is just delighted that they do,
Oh,
which shines a great light on you. So if you're interested, and I know I just had a conversation earlier this afternoon with someone, and we were talking about, I don't think she'd mind. We were talking about, her introduction, and like her getting to know her spirit guide, her main spirit guide. And I was like, I don't know why it's never occurred to me until like in the moment. I'm like, why am I not trying to find out who's like the main person for me there? That's um because to me that's a really fascinating and a really amazing, you know, benefit to this life, is connecting with one's spirit guide. And
yeah.
and so you're offering a 6 week free class on how to do that. Is that correct?
Well, the master class is free. The 6 week class is for now the early bird price is 456.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah. So the
So the
next
master
couple of
class is
weeks,
free. I mean, so if
master
people are
class is
listening to
free.
this and they're hearing what I'm saying, it's free.
Yeah, go check it out. Go
So
meet your
go
guides.
go meet your guides. Hey, go meet your guides.
Go meet your
Go
guy.
meet your guide. Hey, come on, get out of here. But go there. Uh, well, this has been a ton of fun. Thanks again for doing it, and we look forward to. And by we, I mean me and everybody listening. We look forward to the next time that we sit down and chat.
Thank you, Ryan.